I have a question here. Is it Islamically correct to vote for the person or party who approves of something that we don't agree with? So is it okay to vote for a candidate that we don't agree with? Is it okay to not vote at all? There was a conference by Al-Majma' Al-Fiqhi, the Assembly of Muslim Jurists of America. It was held in Montreal, Canada 2 years ago, and they brought scholars from all over the world. One of them was Sheikh Wahb Zuhaili from Syria. They brought Sheikh Rayyan, Sheikh al-Malikiyya fil Azhar. I think Sheikh Suhaib is one of his students, Dr. Rayyan. MashaAllah, brilliant scholar. They brought some of the scholars from Kuwait. They consulted Sheikh Omar al-Ashqar, my sheikh, who lives in Jordan. SubhanAllah, ulama from all over the world to discuss the issue. What do we do? And this is an ongoing discussion. Fiqh al-aqalliyat, the fiqh of minorities. How are we supposed to act as a minority here? When this question was posed, I thought that the answer was very balanced from them. It's okay to endorse a candidate who has views that are different from your views if it's for a greater good, but it's not okay to endorse his views. Now what that means, Yusuf alayhi salam participated, because we look at shara' min qabl, we look at the legislation before when we don't have a precedent in the sunnah. Obviously we don't have this precedent because this is a very unique situation to us right now. Yusuf alayhi salam, not only did he participate in the political system that was based upon something other than Allah's law, he became a minister. And Yusuf alayhi salam did not go to Al-Aziz and say, look, I want to become the Khalifa here. He said, اجعلني على خزائن الأرض. He said, put me, make me a minister of agriculture. I know what I'm doing here. إني حفيظ عليم. I can do this part very well. He participated. That does not mean he endorsed the shirk of Al-Aziz. That does not mean he endorsed his polytheism. So it's okay to participate so long as your views are still clear against the things that you don't agree with. So long as the standard is not blurred and you still hold a position that does not contradict Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's law and the legislation of the Quran and the Sunnah, that's fine, inshaAllah ta'ala, to look for the greater good. We have to engage the political process somehow. Many of the ulama who used to be completely against it are now all for it. What does that mean? Am I telling you need to vote for a particular candidate? No, I'm saying you need to engage the political process as Muslims. The reason why we're such a political liability and people do whatever they want with us is because of our hesitancy to engage the political process despite our numbers. And how do you engage a political process? You don't start with the presidents. You start with the Board of Education. You start with the local councilman. You start with the people on a local level, establishing those ties. That's how you engage the political process, and then you move forward, and then inshallah ta'ala we can talk about the bigger issues and things of that sort. But don't tell me that you're not going to endorse any candidate that's pro-Israeli. Look at the greater good of things. I'm Palestinian. It hurts me more than anything else. I have lost people in that conflict. But at the same time, I'm not going to blind myself and say, I'm going to wait until someone comes that's going to say, all for Palestine, and who's going to sing, Hayya, Hayya, or something like that. I'm not going to wait for that to happen. We need to engage the political process. But I'm not saying it's fard. I'm saying that we should. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not haram. I think we should, as a community, actively engage the political process somehow so that politicians cannot make us, cannot say what they want and harm the Muslim community without having to pay the price. Even if that means voting for a Republican against another Republican in the Republican primary because he's not saying Islamophobic things. We need to make sure that the one who goes out there and runs his mouth about us and about our civil rights pays the price for that. We need to take our frustrations and engage the political process and somehow. Wallahu ta'ala alam.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, yes, and we have 25 minutes. So we're doing good on time, inshallah. But if you have any questions, please get them in.
And just to add to that, two things. Number one is that the idea that until the modern age, politics was always about a perfect leader. And that the discussion now is, if I vote for, say, Mr. Hussein Obama, or I vote for Romney, or anyone, then I'm not saying anything. Then that means I'm supporting some good and evil, and that the idea of supporting good and evil didn't exist kind of previous to, especially in the time of the Khulafa. But you look at, for example, Sultan al-Ulama Aziz Abdul Salam, in his book Qawa'id al-Anam, he talks about the idea of supporting a Muslim leader who was fasiq and mu'min. He talks about the reality of at times having to support, and at that time was making bay'ah to a leader who might have been a fajr, his adala, his integrity might have been suspect, but at the same time he had the sulta. And he actually wrote about this. And he said that if there are two bad leaders, then the lesser evil becomes the good that the Muslims should support. And he talked about this, he wrote about this, and this is over, he was in the 6th century after the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. Number 2 is the idea of even giving money to political parties. So one of our mashaykh actually made qiyas on this, and you can take usul al-fiqh with Maghrib, or Sheikh Majid or someone for qiyas, al-haqq al-amri amr al-istikhraq ilatin baynahuma. But he mentioned something really awesome in Sahih Bukhari, that the Prophet ﷺ actually gave money to the Quraysh for the asra of the Muslims, for the prisoners of the Muslims to be freed, and they freed them. So he said the reason that he gave money to them was to secure the rights of the Muslims. And these were at that time the enemies of the Prophet and Islam in Medina. And they were actually active killing Muslims. He said, well, then what do you say about people who are not at that level, but they might also enact a few policies which might harm your community, but overall, you're guaranteed that they're going to preserve certain fundamental rights for you. So he said, just as the Prophet gave money to the Quraysh at the height of their hatred for him and his community, then you should also be able to give money to political parties who in certain areas are going to defend your rights and look after you, in certain areas that they might not. And I thought this was actually a brilliant fatwa, by the way. Now the question I have, I'm sorry to take your time, I apologize for adding on to what you said. So I have a question here.